So I recently interviewed for a junior backend developer role. So I just thought to share some of the questions I was asked and my experience throughout the interview. So before we move on, I just want to quickly say that I can't really remember the exact questions word for word, but I will try as much as possible to um, rephrase it as accurately as I can, right? All right, so concerning the job interview, I would really say I was the perfect candidate, right? I won't really say that I was, that good, perfect, 100% what you were looking for. But I think what really caught their attention was the app I built. Yeah, so I built an app and I posted it on my GitHub and on social media. So the name of the app is called Up Tracker. So I'll leave the link in the description. So I think that's what they actually saw, and they were like, okay, let's invite this guy for an interview. So let me just share some of the questions I was asked, and I'll try to remember how I answered some of them, but I can't really remember all the questions, and I can't remember the answers, most of the answers I gave to all the questions. I know that's weird, but that's just it. Okay, so the first question I was asked was to talk about my application and how it works underneath, um, what runs on the back end, how's the logic in the back end run, how did I build the front end, how did I deploy the app. So I talked a little bit about that, and I think the guys were impressed. So they moved on to the next question. They started with the technical questions, right? I think I remember most of the questions I remember were technical. So the first technical questions that I was asked was, what is the best way to reverse a string? I know this one is very easy. I think this is the easiest question that was asked, right? So I actually gave them the answer. The answer I gave them was using string slicing. I know there are various methods to do this, but I think the one that just came to my mind that I remembered vividly was using string slicing. Although the interviewer said there are a lot of methods, but I just don't know, maybe I just blanked out on that one, but I just remember that I can actually use string slicing to reverse a string. So the next question I was asked was, what's the difference between synchronous and asynchronous programming, right? So I explained, so they asked the difference and they asked in what situation would you use both of them. So I explained the differences. I explained one, then the other, then I explained the differences, and we moved on to the next question, which was, what's the difference between relational and non-relational databases? I think this one is also one of the easiest one I was asked. And as obviously everybody knows that relational databases are databases used to store data types like strings, integers in tabular format, while non-relational databases are used to store conventional data types like images, videos, and those kind of formats. So that one was pretty simple. Okay. Um, all right. So the next question was, what's the best method for debugging? What do you use for debugging your code? This one is a little bit tricky because my method for debugging is actually kind of different, because most of the time I use a try and except block for debugging, and I think it works very fine for me. But the interviewer was like, there are other efficient methods for debugging. I know there's a debugging tool you use on VS Code and PyCharm and some other IDEs, but with the number of programs and the number of apps that I've built, I think the try and accept block actually works well for me. So when I've gotten that one wrong, I don't really know. Okay, so I think this is the last question I remember. So I'll just wrap up with this. So the last question was, this is not really a technical question. This is just like a behavioral question. So it was, walk us through how you build an application from the beginning to the end, a full stack application, from building it to deploying it. So I explained how I would start with the back end, then integrate the back end with the front end, and then do some local testing and then deploy the app. Okay, so that was just my experience with the interview. So overall, I think the interview was fine. And like I said in the beginning, I didn't think that I was the best candidate for the job or the best candidate to be interviewed, because I know that probably there might be some other maybe gurus out there, that kind of stuff. So guys, so I just thought to share. I'll see you in the next video.